After a traumatizing and never explained event with Professor Ivy,
Pleased to meet you. I'm Professor Ivy.
You okay, Brock?
No.
Brock rejoins the gang as they head to the Johto region,
Yeah, Brock's back!
hoping to find other girls he can flirt with. And boy does he.
Because you're very fair. You're the fairest of them all.
But what if Brock took a portion of his flirting effort, just a tiny bit, and focused on battling instead? Could he enter and win the Silver Conference? After all, in a previous video, he did beat the Indigo League. To find out, I made a ROM hack of Pokemon Soul Silver where you play as Brock. What's more, I'll beat it as a hardcore nuzBrocke block, using only the Pokemon Brock has used in the show. Brock starts his journey in Johto playing on a Wii. This technology is so much better than what they had in Kanto. Downstairs is some lady who welcomes me to Johto. Thank you, random citizen. Outside this house, Brock is attacked by a vicious Meryl. Now, this tiny little guy wouldn't be an issue for most Pokemon, but even a single drop of water is dangerous to Brock's rocks, so keep away, you monster. Having spent the last Pokemon season not traveling with Ash, the first thing Brock needs to do is meet up with his friends again. Okay, I guess Ash is busy. We'll talk later or something. Birch offers me a Pokemon, but instead of taking a normal Johtomon, I need to start with Onix. It was the very first Pokemon Brock got, after all, a present from his father Flint. Then not one, but two people tell me how cute she is. That's not quite the adjective I would use for a giant rock snake, but to each their own, I suppose. Professor Oak's feelings more align with my own. Onix is just not the best Pokemon. Now Ash has time to hang out, but he foolishly brings up a professor who won't be named.
How come you didn't stay with Professor Ivy?
That name.
What happened?
I don't want to talk about it.
She must have dumped him.
Huh?
This always happens.
Well, that just ruined my whole week. Time to make his Pikachu pay. I know I just gave Onix a lot of crap for, well, being Onix, but if nothing else, she is really good at defeating weak electric rodents. It's a bit of a niche skill. Perhaps really good was an overstatement, because it keeps growling me, and this simple battle takes like 7 turns. That'll teach Ash not to mention that person again. Yeah, get out of here. Brock then decides to hit 2 birds with 1 stone, healing his Onix, while also trying to flirt with Nurse Joy. The latter attempt somehow fails.
I'm her cousin.
But you're much, much prettier than she is.
Anyway, a bunch of nothingness happens back at Elm's lab because Silver isn't really in the show, so no Pokemon were stolen. Instead, we just see how useless the Pokemon cops are, unless they're Officer Jenny.
She can violate my rights if...
Once I'm free to explore, I head to Route 46 and find myself a Geodude, who is caught in a single Pokeball. I also enter the Dark Cave and move back and forth in pitch black until I get a Zubat. At the top of Sprout Tower, I find Ash, who encourages me to fight this old man. Normally, I have no problem dunking on oldies. I welcome it, as a matter of fact, but this tower has been a challenge, since Zubat is the only Pokemon who stands any chance at beating these leafy guys. And Astonish is like the best move he has right now. Nevertheless, I elegantly win, his words, not mine, and it's time to get our first Johto badge. Though Faulkner doesn't seem up for it, since he knows about my rock-hard Pokemon. His team has changed, by the way, to match his anime team. Zubat now has Bite, and easily defeats Hoot Hoot thanks to a few flinches. Next is Dodrio, but Geo defeats this triple-headed bird with 2 stones. Last is Pidgeot, and I switch to Flint. Gust is special in this gen, so it does slightly more, but Flint needs to screech that bird. The first rock throw does connect, but after a roost and several more gusts, Flint is at risk of a crit. I pivot to Geo hoping for another roost. It doesn't happen, but he does win with 1 more rock throw. So surprising no one, not even Faulkner, I easily win the first badge without a single death. In addition, a scientist gives me this egg because Elm recognizes that Brock is the real MVP who actually took care of Togepi's egg back in Kanto.
What? You mean you sleep with that egg?
It's the only way it'll hatch. What else can I do?
There is no one more suited than Brock, but this egg isn't a Togepi. More on that later. I get to the Slowpoke well and easily defeat Executive Proton, because the cops won't do, well, anything. Kurt, who is without a doubt the worst Pokeball expert I have ever seen,
Some kind of Pokeball.
gives Brock a fastball. Aside from Zubat, Brock's Pokemon aren't known for being super quick. But thanks, Bugsy, much like Faulkner, acknowledges the futility of his bugs battling my rocks, but he has no choice. His first bug, Spinarak, is promptly wing attacked by my only non-rock. Mooney does hit a single wing attack against Scyther before swapping to Flint. A single quad-effective weak rock throw is all she needs. Metapod wastes her single turn to harden, but is still squashed with some rocks. So yeah, that's about how I expected it to go. I also expected you to be subscribed by now, so what exactly are you waiting for? Though the gym battles have been easy so far, our next encounter with Ash likely will not be. Mainly because he now has a grass and a water type. Chikorita is wing attacked easily enough by Zubat, and Geo, who now knows Magnitude, can one-shot his Pika. Mooney really needs to beat his Totodile, because she's the only one who stands a chance, so I gave her a Shell Bell, which heals 1 whole HP per wing attack. She's slowed down a good amount, but in the end does defeat the Water Croc. Since Heracross doesn't know any fighting moves just yet, I'm safe to bring out Geo on a Horn attack. His rock and ground moves are quite pathetic, more so than expected, but he does know Rock Smash. After lowering Heracross's defense a few times, the bug falls as he's spamming Endure. Cyndaquil is then magnituded in a single hit just like Pika. Well, that didn't go too poorly. Thankfully, Ash has a problem evolving his Mons, though that won't continue. 2 far-fetched sneak attacks later, I force Flint to ram her head into a tree repeatedly, trying to get a pine cone to fall out. There's gotta be a more effective way to do this, like maybe climbing on this giant rock snake's back to reach the pine cones, but I do what I must.
Ready or not, here I come, Pineco! Ah! Ah!
The first tree doesn't seem to be working, but I find a Pineco quickly enough on a second tree. Now, this may seem like a stupid decision, because it is, but following Brock's lead, I decide to throw a fastball at the objectively slow Pokemon. His speed stat is on par with Slowpoke, whose name says it all. Surprising literally no one, the fastball does not work, and Pineco blows up. Hey, it's not my fault. Blame Anime Brock for his unrealistic portrayal of easily catching one. It's fine though, because on the next route, Flint slams some more trees, and this time I have an Ultra Ball, which works a lot better. I also meet this old lady who really seems to get me. I'm sure Brock would love to date Lyra. Or basically any girl for that matter. Except for maybe Whitney. Her Miltank scares me. Before getting to that demon cow, Mooney wing attacks her Nidorina a couple of times, winning quite handily. I'm hoping to bait out a rollout for Flint to tank, but to no avail. That should be fine, since Flint is a girl, she can't be attracted to the cow. Though she can be flinched. She screeches a few times, and is flinched a ton, trying to heal with Shell Bell, and only partially succeeding. Geo comes out, but being a boy, is subject to that cow's wiles. So I quick pivot to Mooney, and back, and finally it starts to roll out. That was miserable. But now that it can't heal, Geo easily knocks it out. Last is Clefairy, who Geo can't defeat because he fell in love again, even though I thought he had just lost the love of his life. Flint finishes the gym in what was objectively not the best showing. Hopefully we can do better at the next gym. Ouch, Whitney, that really hurt. Don't insult Brock's chivalry, that's like all he's got. And the plain badge too, I suppose. I've now proven myself strong enough to use a squirt bottle, which turns into a Bonsly. After all, Brock got his Sudowoodo while it was still a baby tree. I also look for and catch a Vulpix on Route 37. I haven't said this explicitly, but Pokemon that Brock does not evolve will not evolve here either. So I'm stuck with a Vulpix, a Geodude, and more. I also head into Mount Mortar to get an Oval Stone, in preparation for this marathon I'm about to run. Remember that egg from a few gyms ago? Well, it finally hatches. Not into Togepi, but Happiny, who, thanks to the Oval Stone, immediately evolves into Chansey, just in time for another Ash battle, as he reminds us of his Ho-Oh encounter from Kanto. He starts with a non-shiny Noctowl, completely breaking the immersion of this game. I'm sorry guys, I just don't know how to give trainers shiny Pokemon. Not that it lasts long enough to matter. Mooney then easily defeats his fighting bug after an Endure. I pivot to Geo, who misses Pikachu several times, before Ash hard swaps to Bayleaf. Well, that's not fair. It's time for Mooney again, I suppose, followed by Geo again. Mooney is still my best Mon against the now evolved Crocodile. It makes things a bit more interesting to give him actually more impressive Pokemon. I had hoped for a fire move for Suzy to absorb on the swap to Quilava, but since that didn't work, and Geo fails miserably at knocking it out, I swap back into Suzy, who does absorb an Ember. Not that it helps, she knows no attacking fire moves. Oh well, quick attacks are still good enough. Geez Ash, that was a rough one. In preparation for the Marty battle, I backtracked to Goldenrod to do everyone's favorite minigame, Voltorb Flip. To be honest, I much prefer this over random slots, because at least here there's some skill involved. You'll see soon enough what I got. With my preparations complete, it's time to battle the so-called chosen one, Morty, who starts off pretty poorly with a bitten Ghastly. Now Gengar is another matter, so I pivot to Chansey, aka Joy Wannabe, for her first real battle. She has learned several important moves thanks to Voltorb Flip, but immediately falls asleep. That's fine, Gengar can't actually hurt her as long as she doesn't use an attacking move. Between Substitute, Soft Boiled, Thunder, and Fire Blast, this is a long and drawn out battle, but eventually she does knock it out and is never really at risk of dying. Haunter then tries and fails to curse, which was basically the only thing he had a chance to do. What a waste of your turn, Morty. We have a good time making fun of Ash together till he completely kills the mood. Why you gotta be like that, man? I saved this damsel in distress from Team Rocket, who is not grateful in the slightest. Oh, come on. What, you flirt with every woman with a pulse, and all of a sudden they don't want to talk to you?
In plain English, miss, you look rockin' in those robes.
Anyway, Ash very kindly did all the Ampharos medicine stuff for me, even though Brock was certainly a part of that journey. But it saves me some time, so I'll take it. I do need to catch a Lotad before heading to Jasmine though. Some of these Mon encounters are a bit out of order, but I tried to put them where they made the most sense. Brock obviously didn't have a Lotad in Johto, but he does get one in the next region. Ash has been making fun of me behind my back it seems, which is something I would never do to him. Probably. Anyway, Suzy may not be able to evolve, but she learns Flamethrower at a decently low level. So I lead with her against Jasmine, and she easily knocks out Magnemite. Oh, and gets a crit on Steelix too. That was way easier than expected. Here I thought Suzy was going to have to die. I ride across the ocean on a lily pad, like a frog, and Mooney finally likes me enough to evolve.
Whoa! Guys, Golbat just evolved!
Just in time for the Chuck battle, who appears to have problems controlling his emotions. With a bat that quad resists fighting moves, this should not be tough at all. His Poliwrath is immediately plucked by Mooney, doing basically nothing with Poison Jab. Now Dynamic Punch could be an issue, but Chuck chooses not to use it, and this Machoke just straight up dies. Just the way I like those gyms to go. It's been a while, so let's catch another Pokemon. I put Krogunk here in Mount Mortar. I don't know if I'll use her, since she can't actually evolve, but we'll see. While helping Lance defeat Team Rocket, two important things happen. First, Ash shows up to encourage me on my journey to rid the world of evil. Not that he helps much. Then, after beating up those certainly innocent Electrodes, who don't know what they're doing, Geo, who has been a vital member of the team, tries and fails to evolve. Brock isn't quite as bad as Ash when it comes to evolving, but he's still not great. At least his Chansey evolves into the longest to defeat Gen 4 Pokemon. She has so much HP, it takes forever. Kappa also evolves with a Leaf Stone. In the Price-Ash battle, Price basically gave up because he didn't want his Pokemon to get hurt.
Piloswine has had enough, and so I used a technical knockout.
Maybe being a gym leader is the wrong career for you. To take on his Dugong, I lead with Blissey. She has Thunder instead of Thunderbolt, which wasn't the best, but it is what it is. This does mean that Blissey misses twice. The other two turns, she is flinched by Headbutt. So that was a great start. Kappa does a bit better, mega draining to stay relatively healthy while still defeating the Dugong. Piloswine barely survives a Surf, and Kappa an Ice Fang. Thank goodness Ludicolo is faster and can win here. That was rough, even if it was kind of fast. He did only have two Pokemon after all. Ash and I meet up again during a rocket infiltration, and Ash exposes me to everyone here, which I'm sure Brock wouldn't approve of, particularly because there aren't any ladies present. Karma appears to catch up to Ash as he is transformed into a Pikachu by a real-life Poké Witch.
What? Why are you guys looking at me like I've got 2 heads or something?
Unfortunately, it didn't last very long. Fine, let's just have a battle. Flint defeats Noctowl, who first sets up a Reflect. That's unfortunate, because I need to one-shot that Heracross in the off chance it counters. So Mooney stalls with a Bite until Reflect wears off. Then it plucks the bug. Flint reappears to Rock Throw Pikachu, since she has no ground moves. Susie takes a few Petal Dances, responding with Flamethrower, but it doesn't look like she can defeat Meganium. Mooney, on the other hand, easily can. She U-turns into Kappa against this Feraligatr, who takes a crap ton from a critical crunch. Still, Mega Drain is more than enough. Too bad that required a Choice Specs, because now she has to swap. Flint tries to Rock Throw a bit, but thanks to Defense Curls and her abysmal attack stat, it's not working. I pivot back to Ludicolo and misclick, hitting Zen Headbutt instead of Surf. That was stupid, and again, I need to swap around because Choice Specs. Finally though, he can Surf Typhlosion. That was not as smooth as I had hoped. Ash then shows us why 10-year-olds should be in school learning how to spell instead of gallivanting across the Poké World. Now Archer, the final Team Rocket leader, isn't an issue in the slightest, as my Choice Specs Kappa easily surfs his entire team, even after a Fire Fang from Houndoom. How do you like that, you rockets? For our final encounter in the Ice Path, I find a Mudkip. I would have gotten this guy earlier, but again, he can't evolve into Swampert, so I'm not inclined to use him right now. Bonsly can evolve though, so maybe I'll start using him later. Not for the Claire battle. I have something cheap planned for this one. Since my last gym battle didn't work out so well, this time I raid the stores at the game corner and take everything my grubby little hands can grab. It's working okay here against Kingdra, but she keeps using Smokescreen in between my Blissey's subs, so I pivot quickly to Fortress and then right back. Blissey obviously stays healthy with Soft Boil, not an issue here, and Shell Bell heals a tiny bit too. Eventually my cheap strategy works, and Kingdra is defeated with Blissey at full health, and with a sub. It's immediately broken by Dragonair, but 2 Ice Beams do the Dragon in. Gyarados then gets 2 Bite Flinches in a row, putting me in a precarious spot. I should have switched already, but I do so now into Mooney. She Poison Fangs, really hoping for a badly poison, and it happens. A few more Fangs, while holding a Metronome, the Gyarados is defeated. Unlike in the games, in the show, Claire is a fine loser, giving up her badge like normal. Meaning, I don't need to waste any time in the Dragon's Den. I now have all 8 badges. Professor Elm then informs Brock that the Kimono girls have been looking for him, which is basically how all of Brock's fantasies start. He runs to Ekritique, barely pausing to take a breath, presenting himself in front of all of these beautiful ladies.
Ash, this is terrible. I want all of them and they all want me. Am I right?
You're half right.
And is met with a less than enthusiastic response, which is how all of Brock's fantasies are ruined by a little thing called reality. He still gets to see Lugia though, so that's something. Having been rejected by the final girls in Johto, Brock now has no other options but to return to Kanto, and so he might as well challenge the Pokemon League, or as I'll call it, the Silver Conference. Kanto seems to be ready though. First, Ash and I come head to chin one last time. The winner of this battle gets to move forward in the Silver Conference. Ash's team will be a bit of a surprise here, as he starts with Tauros. Its Intimidate is not great, but there's nothing I can do. I debated which berry to give Sudoku here, ultimately choosing a Babiri berry, if that's how you say it. This means that Sudoku is confused with Swagger, but easily survives an Iron Tail when it eventually hits, and 2 low kicks knock out the Safari Zone Mon. I then swap into Mooney on Meganium, who can easily take out that Dino, but not before it uses Reflect. That kind of sucks. With that defense boost, Fortress hits Snorlax with a return, doing a tad more than Leftovers heals. That's clearly not going to work. I instead pivot to Steelix to screech that Fatso a few times. Fortress return then easily does more than half, and Snorlax falls. This baits out a Charizard. I'm expecting a Flamethrower for obvious reasons, but Blissey is air slashed instead. I'm still okay with that. She survives a Flare Blitz and forces Ash to heal with Thunderbolt. Blissey isn't going to win though. Instead, Mooney comes back out to fly that Zard, after taking another Flare Blitz. Muck just isn't an issue for Steelix. though he doesn't yet know Earthquake, so I need to rely on lowering defenses and iron-tailing that small sludge. Mooney then comes back out a final time, taking virtually nothing from Heracross, and plucks in the process. Alright, well, with Ash defeated, Brock is now officially the main character and can enter the Silver Conference. Let's begin with Will, who gives me a bit of trouble as his Xatu immediately U-turns away from Sudoku. That's fine, Kappa has a choice specs, but is confused by Slowbro on the Water Pulse. Of course he is. A few self-inflicted wounds later, 2 Mega Drains knock out the Water Bro. I pivot to Steelix as Xatu again U-turns. This is getting old already. Fortress makes an appearance to Bug Bite Jinx, which is just barely weaker than I had hoped. He ends up asleep, almost falls to a crit Psychic, but wakes up in the nick of time and bites the Jinx again. This time, Xatu does not run away. Instead, he me-first Steelix a few times, hitting a giant steel snake with a couple of rocks. That was a good move there, Will. Thanks to a Lumberry healing Confusion, Steelix clearly overcomes that bird. For Executor, Flint falls asleep, so she's not going to do anything. Though I do have a special defensive tank in Blissey. I meant to replace Fire Blast with Flamethrower before this battle, but I guess I totally spaced it. That's not great, because now Blissey misses a bit, uses a substitute, and heals, but eventually does defeat the Coconut Tree. She is then also more than strong enough to defeat his last Xatu with Thunderbolts, even after getting confused. That was a bit harder than I expected. It was only Will, after all, but things should be easier from here. I'm not expecting a challenge from Koga, for example. Both Ariados and Venomoth are defeated with a single fly each from Mooney. For Fortress, Blissey had a Chillin Berry in a pathetic attempt to survive a rogue explosion, which didn't actually end up happening, and easily flamethrowers the Steel Bug. Flint does now have Earthquake, which eventually hits and takes out Monk. Who knew that being small made an Earthquake less likely to hit? She then defeats Crobat with a Screech Rock Throw combo. I told you that was going to be easier. Now Bruno is generally my least favorite Elite Four member, and that still holds today. Not because he's super tough, Hitmontop falls in a single fly, after all, but because he still has a freaking Onyx. At least evolve it. Steelix is a thing now. That might have let it survive a Choice Specs Mega Drain. Mooney then comes back out on Machamp's Cross Chop. She heals with a Pluck in preparation for a Rock Slide that never comes. Huh, if it had crit, that would have been the end of my bat. Since it didn't, she can easily fly both the Hitmonchan and the Lee, while holding a wide lens just to make sure she doesn't miss the 95% accurate move. Stranger things have happened in Nuzlocks, so as always, Bruno sucks. Karen sucks a bit less, after all, she has an Umbreon. It's impossible to suck with one of those. Fortress's Bug Bite is not all that strong, but between a Lumberry and being able to survive virtually anything that Cool Fox can dish out, Piney ends up the victor. This of course baits out a flamethrowering Houndoom. Blissey takes the heat and hits a single Thunderbolt. She then runs away to a Choice Scarf Kappa, whose Surf can now take out the Fire Dog. Mooney makes an appearance on Vileplume, heals a Paralysis, and wins in a few hits. Murkrow is similarly defeated with Pluck and a U-turn. That way, I can send Kappa out to outspeed and then headbutt this Gengar. Unfortunately, the Ghost survives 2 hits and gets healed. To avoid a possible Destiny Bond death, I need Pokemon to outspeed the Ghost, meaning we go back to Crobat to finish off with a few plucks. Her defeat brings us to the championship battle against Lance. I'll admit, I didn't adequately prepare for this battle before entering the league, so it may or may not go well. We'll see. Crobat starts off getting intimidated and dealing some chip damage with U-turn. Piney comes out and can handle most anything this Gyarados can dish, except for several flinches, I suppose. He does hit with a single return, but that is by no means the way I expected it to go. Piney just straight up dies, because I don't feel comfortable hard swapping right now. Oh boy. At least Mooney knocks out Gyarados with a Pluck and a Fly. For Aerodactyl, I have Flint, who misses the first Iron Tail, make that 2, scratch that, 3 times in a row. That's also not how I expected it to go. At least she takes almost nothing from these hits. Charizard is clearly going to Flamethrower Steelix, or, you know, Air Slash, knowing I would pivot to Kappa. That's not fair. I was trying to bait out a Slash for Sudoku, not for Kappa. Anyway, Sudoku Rock Slides the Fire Flyer. I take a risk here, leaving Sudoku in, and she makes it, staying alive after an outrage with 5 HP. That lets me swap into Flint to finish off that outrage, before pivoting to Kappa to Ice Beam the dragon. He has a choice scarf, so let's just Ice Beam the next one too, who survives, but misses with Thunder. Well, that was lucky for me. The next Dragonite isn't quite so lucky, meaning I do beat Lance at the cost of a steel bug. The worst part is, he didn't even get a chance to blow up, and they love doing that. With that, the Elite Four and Champion are defeated, and Brock is no longer a lowly gym leader abandoning his duties. But since this is Soul Silver, I'm not quite done yet. After dropping Fortress off at a farm, I head to Kanto, where Oak hands over all of the Kanto badges. Works for me. With that, and Rock Climb, Red is reachable at the top of Mount Silver. For this battle, I start with Mudskip, the Marsh Tomp for his debut battle. He's not the strongest, but he's still good enough to beat a Light Ball Pikachu. I pivot to Crobat on a quad-resisted Giga Drain, who plucks Venusaur a few times. This baits out a Blizzarding Lapras, but Blissey easily takes the hit. I know it's kind of cheap, but between Substitute, Soft Boiled, and an Expert Belt Thunderbolt, Lapras is easily defeated. And Blastoise too, for that matter, even with a Focus Blast. For Charizard, Sudowoodo tanks a Fire Blast, and a Dragon Pulse, responding with a 4 times effective Rock Slide. Snorlax is low-kicked as Sudoku heals with Shell Bell, but it wasn't enough thanks to a crit. She dies, allowing Steelix to come out and Earthquake the Fatso, ending Red's reign of terror in this video as well. Once, Sudoku goes to visit the farm too. So once again we've seen that aside from just being a flirt, though he very much is a flirt, Brock is also a decent Pokemon trainer. If you'd like to try this game yourself, check out the Google Drive link in the video description. Next time we see Brock, it'll likely be in the Hoenn region.
Hey, it's Brock. This is Brock?
I hope to see you there.